like to call this morning's meeting of Planning Environmental Management Real Property Committee to order. If you'll please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Annie, if you'll do roll call.
Mr. Sorensen.
Here.
Mrs. Geiger.
Here.
Mrs. Labuda.
Here.
Mr. Steingart. Mrs. Edwards.
Here.
Okay, we do have a discussion item, although I'm not sure if we're gonna have it due to the government shutdown. But we'll wait and see. If Sean shows up, we'd be delighted to have him do the presentation. If not, we'll wait till next month.
I think my understanding is that it's a partial government shutdown. It's very selective, and the National Park Service is part of that partial.
Okay.
They don't consider it an essential service.
No, that's certain things where the public
That's what I heard.
gets hurt.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that?
They don't consider
I heard the
it.
same thing this morning because of the time of year, they were talking about like the Great Smoky Mountains, you know,
Yeah.
how much tourism they get. People looking for the fall colors, and a lot of those parks have been shut down. Some of the trails are still open, so it is somewhat selective.
And some of the counties actually get more tourism in the fall than they do in the summer.
Well, did I hear yesterday that they're thinking about holding this social security checks for the seniors, so they may not get paid? If I was those
October
seniors are so
31st.
powerful, get on a busload, are you kidding me? They need that money.
We'll get some of the World War II vets to storm the place. That's all we
Exactly,
gotta
I
do.
mean, stop already, people have to pay their bills, and people live from paycheck to paycheck, they can't hold that,
I suspect
people
that
gonna
in the
do?
next
I
couple
do
of
too. I think
days
they're gonna-
they'll-
it's gonna lift.
Yeah.
I agree, I don't think it's gonna.
We need to talk like grown-ups, but.
And?
Imagine that.
Well, I think it's nice that we have the National Park Service here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's been a good fit for the county, and it's a wonderful resource, so.
Yeah, sure.
Bless you. So we'll defer that discussion until next month. All right, I'm gonna go next to the county treasurer. We have a few items or resolutions. I'll read them, and then Ira, if you or Nancy want to provide an explanation. All right, the first one is to convey property in the town of Thompson acquired to Sullivan County by virtue of interim tax foreclosure proceedings for tax year 2011 lien year.
I'll move that out.
Okay, a second?
Kathy.
Second on the motion? I'll second it.
Alan.
Okay, Ira?
If I may say, the three resolutions are similar in the respect that they all involve properties that we took title to earlier this year, the 2011 delinquent liens, but we put them up in the June auction and they did not sell. And now people have approached us to buy them privately and come before the advisory board. So all three are similar in that respect. These are properties that were not sold at the June auction.
Okay.
That we're seeking to sell now.
Oh, very good.
Can I move?
I'll ask for a motion on this one, then we'll move the other two
Okay,
as
good,
well.
I'll make a motion, yep.
So all in favor of this first resolution?
4-zip.
Okay, and we'll move the next two as a block motion.
Okay.
Kathy,
So
I'll
moved.
second it. All in favor?
4-zip.
Okay. All right. Planning, Jill, do you wanna, anything to update?
I do. I wanted to kind of let the board know about the LWRP, which we've talked about a little bit.
That's a local waterfront
It's
revitalization
a
plan.
local waterfront revitalization program. This is phase 2. This is the river accesses and the signage program. One of our requirements of the grant is that we need one of the parcels along the river in the town of Lumberland to be resolved to be permanently open space. So I'd like to introduce a resolution possibly next month to allow that. That would allow us to put $25,000 of the market value or appraised value of the land as our in-kind match. Otherwise, we'd have to come up with other in-kind match possibly through our staff time and stuff, and so ideally it would be,
Have you spoken to the town alumni about it?
yeah, Nadia is
And
on.
she's on board?
Yep.
Okay.
Who
It's-
owns the property?
The county owns it, they've owned it since I think 1936. It's a small strip of land, it's right by where the Pondetti Bridge is, so the right-of-way may change depending on the relocation of this bridge, I guess they're redoing the bridge.
Right.
So, but basically that whole strip there, and then this would be one of the potential accesses that the river, program would start to give a conceptual diagram
What's it
design
gonna
for.
look like? What's the end product gonna be?
For this, that would be working with the town and the committee to decide, you know, whether is this a fishing access, is there, you know, a trail, is it, you know, it's really kind of up to the local municipalities to see, you know, what kind of river access we wanna allow, but it would have some sort of public access to the river there.
Well, that's the key, I think, public access. We have lots of property in this county that's absolutely stunning and can be used for fishing and hiking and a lot of other things, and we need more public access so that people can actually enjoy it.
But the other thing that I think is important is if you're gonna have public access, that it's more than just a fishing pier. I mean, if you're talking about the waterway, you wanna be able to put a kayak or something on,
Right.
unload, you know, to drive down to,
Well, again,
rather than.
Right, well, and that's gonna be up to the committee and to the towns, because
Right.
some towns have, you know, boat launches, some have bathrooms, some have picnic areas. It's kind of gonna be up to the to the community of what they want in their town.
And the physical constraints of the site.
Right, well, and then
It's-
for as far as
I think it's
operation and
sort of
maintenance,
straight
and just to
down.
let you know, for this parcel, the National Park Service has, offered to co-manage or co-maintain. So that would be another agreement that we could look at to see, some sort of partnership there to have them kind of help us out, so.
just so everybody's aware, I'm
It's a good
taking this
partnership.
information with me to the Fish and Wildlife statewide board on October 31st and November 1st. I will be up in Hamilton, New York, and I'm gonna be pitching what we're doing down here in Sullivan County to the statewide board.
One thing
That's
I'd
great.
like to see also is, rather than just being shown, you know, this is what's happening with this access or whatever, is the overall, the way all of these, there's 4 access points in this project?
There's six,
Six.
one in
Six.
each.
One in each town, how they're all gonna work cooperatively together, if such a thing is possible, as one project.
Did
I
you
think
get-
they're an outgrowth really of part of it is the enhancement plans with the corridor.
And then the LWRP plan, and so they
Yes.
will have sort of a design schematic that will coordinate, so that the signage is similar, the street, not street furniture, but the amenities, any benches or structures that are
Common
built, will
design
all kind of
vocabulary.
coordinate, so there'll be this linkage. And
From
that is why
where
the
to-
county's coordinating, you know, along the river.
So the furthest, northernmost access point is where?
You have that map?
It
I'm just
is
saying.
in Long Eddy.
Long Eddy, and then the southernmost point is, I saw
Long
like 4 or 5,
Condon.
okay. When I went to that one particular, I can't remember the name of that consulting firm that was at the firehouse, they were doing a public.
Synthesis, or LaBerge.
They were, yeah, they were doing that, and they were saying one of the big issues that they saw as people just coming through the scenic byway is that, there's not a sense of place with regards to a uniform look. So, you know, at some point, well, where is it that they're all gonna come up with the same thing?
Well, that's
With all
why we've
these
hired that
designs.
one consultant, I think last month we passed the resolution,
Yeah,
the
the
contract
Pittsburgh
with,
people.
yeah, to, kind of coordinate that design
Mhm.
language. And that will be incorporated into all 6 of those river access sites.
So one of the deliverables will be unified signage?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And, will that be able to be funded through the CFA
The next round, yes.
2014? So.
Assuming there are programs in there that they would be eligible for, but yes,
Well,
ideally that is.
Parks and
We
historic
will-
preservation?
Right, we will have this
Trails.
conceptual diagram for each of these river accesses that we can then go forward and, you know, further implement them.
Which is the funding agency that this is coming from, that
Department of State.
Department, DOS, okay. So, at some point, they're gonna be putting out their grant guidance, right? Whether it's Department of State that the money comes from, or, was it part of their Main Street program, or what was
No.
what was the
This
program?
is the LWRP, the Local Waterfront
Waterfront
Revitalization
Revitalization.
Program.
So if there's ways to link it with the towns, you know, whatever town is there, I just don't like seeing everything so fragmented, that's my personal plea.
No,
You
and
know,
I,
I think
That's
this is
what
actually.
That's what this plan is.
It's
to bring
consistent
it
with
all
what you
together.
want, because it does include all the towns, and an outgrowth of this is that there will be a common design vocabulary for the fishing access points, so that, you know, when you go into a national park, right down to the guide rails and the signage,
Right.
there's a common theme. That's what you're gonna see here, as an outgrowth of this, so that when you're in the park or within the byway, and you stop at various amenities, public access amenities along the way, there's gonna be, I think, a recognizable sense of place that's
That
an
is the
outgrowth
goal.
of it.
And there'll be like specific brochures that let you know that, and I just want it all to tie in.
that's more of a marketing thing that we
Yeah.
could, yeah, that, I mean, that is something that we could work with probably Visitors Association, you know, once we have these
Yeah.
public access sites, and that we know what the town, and, you know, cause right again, this is in the beginning phase conceptually, there's no guarantee that they are gonna be developed until, you know, we take that next step. So we get these plans, we, you know, get the buy-in from the communities and all of the partners, and then the next step is to kinda implement them. So we don't wanna have a map of where the 6 accesses are until we know that they're actually built and up and running. But that would be the ideal goal.
Cindy, I know you had
Yeah, I
questions?
just had wanted to clarify, because there was a question at one of my town boards about, the ownership of the accesses, because there's 6 accesses, and, how many of those are, through private property?
Well, 2 of the towns are still deciding on which access
was the
they're gonna
one we
go
were
for.
talking about.
So I don't have that information in front of me of who they
Okay.
are, but I do know that the Pondetti site is county owned.
Okay, but the other, 5 haven't, settled on a
2 of them
location?
haven't, and the other 2 have. I only brought the Pondetti site, I apologize, but, I can get that information for you.
Okay, thanks.
Because I think some are already owned, so I think DEC might own one, but I'll get that information.
Because there were questions at the town board meeting if the access is through private property, and we're improving that property, even though we have, would have, you know, the access to
It wouldn't be private property. In the town of Highland, one of the potential sites is actually owned by the town, and I think that's where they, you know, have to
Right.
decide what they want on these public sites, but I'll get you the
Okay,
ownership.
thanks.
Jill, I would just ask, you coordinate with Ed McAndrews on the, I guess, the framework of the easement, just so, in case there's anything that DPW needs in terms of right to get in, maintain structures within there, that he
Yeah.
thinks that through, and so we would grant the easement for open space, but still provide,
Okay.
it's right for DPW to get in there.
Right, and I think it's PennDOT who is actually in control of this bridge, so.
Oh, okay, I
um,
think that's right, yeah.
So, yeah, we will coordinate with them too as well, and then ideally, I would like to bring a resolution next month to, forever designate this property as parkland, and then we would have another resolution either next month or the following month for an agreement with National Parks to, co-manage the location. And that even could probably happen later if there's any concerns there, because, again, we haven't done anything to the site for them to manage.
Okay, so we will have a resolution on this next month. In the interim, just coordinate with DPW and legal to get the resolution in a form that, we can pass, and Ira?
Just curious as to what the benefit is to make it perpetual.
The benefit, that I don't have the answer to, but the requirement of the grant is that we have to do that.
What's the actual wording of that? Perpetually wild, perpetually
I do have that.
accessible? Because it makes a big difference in parkland.
Well, especially if it's in a
I
floodplain.
think it just has to be accessible.
As long as it says access, the Fish and Wildlife Board will be fine with that. Because if there's no access, they'll kill me.
Can you also just
No.
check about what happens if it's in a floodplain with them?
That's something we'd have to
Well, if it's on the
research.
river.
Right, well, and that, any development, of course,
It's on
would
the
not
river,
be
wouldn't
within
it
the.
be in a floodplain?
Not
We're not
necessarily.
building any structures necessarily.
Right. Oh, there it is. Resolution by the county legislator designating property in Lumberland as parkland in perpetuity with public access and site control.
Bingo. Thank you.
Alright, so it's
Perfect.
parkland, okay.
You wrote that, right?
All right, so everyone knows what's coming down the pipe, so should we no surprises next month when we have this on?
And then, can I just give a quick update on, the other two grants?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So two of our grants, are in the process of, well, two expired and one will expire, at the end of this month. So I'm hoping to possibly have, a discussion or presentation maybe next month on the status of those and what projects were accomplished, and just kind of give an overview of the projects that were done.
Okay.
I
Is
thought
this with the
maybe-
map?
Which one was that?
Sorry, yes. One would be micro enterprise, which is actually ending at this month, so that probably we wouldn't present till maybe December. But we would present, potentially the New York Main Street, the River Corridor grant,
Okay.
which was, in the Hamlets building developments. And then the RBOG for the comprehensive economic development, but we could decide whether that should be in CED or planning.
What's the deadline for the map grant?
10/31 this month.
So when are you bringing it forward for us to,
The micro,
the map, the one that's due on October 31st?
well, I would like to kind of close that out and get the paperwork done through November, and then I would be able to present it to you in December.
That means that we're going to meet the October 31st deadline.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second one,
The Main Street corridor,
When is
River
that?
Corridor.
When's the
That
deadline
one
on that?
deadlined, September 30th. So we're in the process of closing out that grant and getting all the necessary disbursement requests up to the state.
by,
We have, I think, till the end of this month. They would like it by the end of this week, but I think we have a couple. You know, you have until the end of September 30th to incur costs, and then it gives us time to kind of compile all that from the grantees and
And
our
then-
grant administration of our in-kind services, and get that packaged and up to the state.
and then the third one is,
Third one is the RBOG, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies.
so are we in a position to be able to draw down 100% on all those three grants?
No.
Okay, which ones are we not in a position to draw 100%?
We are still under negotiation of whether we are gonna draw down 100% of the RBOG, Comprehensive Economic
That's the only
Development.
one? Okay, and how much of the project's actually been completed?
We have a final product, but it's up to us to determine the completion of that, whether that meets the deliverable needs of the grant requirement.
Okay.
I would just like to compliment the planning staff on both the map and the New York Main Street grant, because, you know, in the spring, we were at a crossroads in terms of whether we try to get an extension and, you know, be able to get these dollars out there, into the local economy, and they have made a concerted effort with being short of staff, to do everything in their power to do that. So, I think we've accomplished a lot more than had we just, you know, given up back in the early part of the spring, and I just want to commend the planning staff, for especially being so short-staffed, for making that
And audit and
effort.
legal and grants and everybody else that pitched in.
And other departments, absolutely. But I know the burden, there's a lot of burden placed on planning staff to move this along, so thank you.
Thanks, Sal. We are trying.
All right, we're on to resolutions for real property. Linda, should I read these individually, or?
Yeah, well, they're two separate things.
Okay. I'll just read the first one, that cancel taxes and chargebacks for appropriate taxing districts on a parcel of real property in the town of Mamakating for which the tax liens are unenforceable.
I'll move it.
Kathy?
Second? I'll second it. Linda?
Okay, this resolution is to cancel the taxes for 2013 and 2012 and 2013 town and county delinquent taxes on this parcel. It's a parcel that's owned by a homeowners association. It has a dam on it in need of extensive repair. The county treasurer filed a certificate of withdrawal back in January of 2012, and it's just a cleanup. It allows us
Wardsboro
to charge
Hills.
back the other taxing districts by canceling. these
Wardsboro
taxes.
Hills.
Wardsboro Hills, yes.
Okay, if we can't enforce it, can't enforce it. Motion is second. Call the question? All in favor?
Or zip.
Okay, next one is to correct 2012 tax roll for the town of Fallsburg, the tax map 28-150.6901. I think it's dash. Ooh, it's a long number. No, it is point.
It's condominium, that's why it's got a
got
crazy
it.
number like that.
Yep. All right, ask for a motion. Kathy?
Kathy.
Second, Cora?
Or,
Questions, discussion, all in favor?
or zip.
All right, any other departmental program updates or reports?
I'm sure Ira will do this instead, but I just wanted them to talk about, we're commencing our foreclosure October 24th.
Okay,
What do you
October 24th.
Cheers.
Ira?
Well, by the time we meet again, we will have commenced, this year's foreclosure for, the 2012 liens.
Okay.
We literally have, every single person in the office working on this. If you come downstairs, you'll see volumes and volumes. Every desk is full of papers, mailings, and whatnot. I think we're mailing out this year, about 1,700 properties.
Wow.
Normally, when we file a list of delinquent taxes, which would have been a year ago for these properties, we usually average about 2,500 properties, but by this time, a year later, it's usually reduced as a result of redemptions down to, 1,000, 1,100, something like that.
So we're
something like
high.
that. So we are commencing the foreclosure this year against more properties than we have in the past.
That's a bad
Uh,
trend.
No, but
But
a big number of those are defaulted installments, which are old.
This is all.
from, you're talking about,
but we have,
for
you know,
how
we have
many
a-
years
We
back?
have a defaulted installments every year. So, the redemption period will remain the same, which will expire on January 31st. And then we'll submit judgment of foreclosure in February and take title by the end of February. And then again, go through the same process we go through every year. So, we're also, after we finish this month, staff will begin the village foreclosures. And this year, we've picked up the village of Monticello again, and we'll be dealing with that.
Do we charge them for doing that work?
We charge them the same as we charge every other village. If there's a redemption, we take the administrative fee, which is levied by statute. It used to be $150 a parcel, it's now, by virtue of a court order that we obtained, $250 a parcel. As we've discussed in the past, there's some plan to use the surplus of that money for hopefully developing foreclosure software. The only other charge we get for that is for parcels that are not redeemed and end up in our public auction. If there's a surplus, we share in some of that surplus. But that's all covered by the intermunicipal agreements we enter into, and they're all the same. The difference with Monticello is, one, there's more volume. Two, because they thought they could do it on their own a few years ago, after we had done it for them for a few years. They said, oh, this is easy, we'll do it ourselves. And then they haven't foreclosed in the past, 3 years? So they haven't done a foreclosure in 3 years, so there's gonna be a lot of problems. We've met with them many times already.
Oh, so they know.
We've gotten introduced to their new treasurer, we've been working with their clerk and the mayor, but so far, we still haven't gotten what we've asked for as
So we
far
don't
as
know how
lists.
many
No.
of an increase it's gonna be. This
No.
is such a painful time of year, Ira,
Yes, it is.
because, as you know, in Liberty and Hurleyville, they have a high, number of foreclosures. People are selling their houses at like bargain basement prices if they can even get a buyer. As far as I know, there's some purchases where people are just raising the buildings in along with the fact that we're getting less in retail sales tax than even last year, puts even more burden on revenue from property tax. And, you know, it's just this,
Like you said, it's painful.
yeah, it's very, from here on, it's between now and this time next year, you know, we get all the letters of people who are asking not to, you know, whatever, foreclose on their house. So, this is part of the reason why I feel like we can't just continually keep raising taxes, you know, beyond the, tax cap rate, you know, and just saying, well, we'll put this money, you know, $6 million in the capital improvements, when the reality is that we can't keep squeezing property tax owners
Well,
beyond
it's
their point.
Directly related to the decisions we make here.
Well, exactly.
In the school districts and towns.
So
Well, the school-
we
yes.
keep coming to the table and not facing the, you know, making
Yeah.
tough decisions.
When your school superintendents are making
Well,
almost
every year.
$200,000 a year, it's getting a little out of hand.
Ira, one of
The other thing, if we could, we've had discussion about increased participation in defending tax certs and exempt cases, and we're moving along with that. We had a committee meeting a couple of days ago and went through some of the properties, but the difficulty in going through the specific properties to recommend to the legislature this year or in any year is that we don't want to get involved in litigation that we want to get involved in litigation that should be settled, but we want to know what we're doing, obviously. And sometimes the towns are deficient because they try to defend or settle litigation without even spending money to get an appraisal. What we've recommended to the board is that we would look for a couple of appraisers to retain so they work for us. And what we need to do is, in selecting some of these properties, we've already met with Thompson, and Mamakating came in to see us. So we've got two big towns that we can, and some big tax certs there that we can look at. But what we wanna do is have some authority to order appraisals for some of those, so that we have a better idea as to whether they should be settled, and if so, for how much, or whether the settlement discussions are so far apart that they should be litigated, and if so, whether or not there's a chance, what the chances of success are. So we really need to get some appraisals before we commit, and again, these are somewhat time sensitive because of the statute. Many of them already have return dates in court. We intend to make some calls, look for some appraisers and legal counsel as well. So we just want to sort of get a general consensus that we can proceed along these lines.
Okay, Sam?
You don't have a line in the 2013 budget to support this. But we're gonna, if the board wants us to start, we're gonna have to start incurring some expense in 2013. The way we suggested we do it is that we contact a couple of appraisers who we have some confidence in and get rather inexpensive preliminary appraisals, not court-ready appraisals, so that we can make a determination based on that whether the particular tax cert is one in which we should get involved. Once we have that, we would come back to the board and say we would like to get involved in these 2, 3, 7, however many tax certs. Understand, that's gonna be a county expense. There's no money coming back from a successful tax cert case.
Because
Because you don't get any, there's no money coming back to the county.
what?
there's no money that comes back to the county to reimburse you for your effort in defending a tax cert.
But isn't the ultimate goal to get it back on the tax roll or not?
No, it's not a matter of getting back on tax.
They want a
The ultimate
reduction.
goal
Oh,
is
I'm
to-
sorry.
What a tax certiorari is, somebody has a piece of property that's assessed at, we use arbitrary numbers, $2 million. They've applied for a certiorari to reduce that to $1 million. If all the certioraries, especially, and Nancy has them there,
I do.
that were applied for this year were granted, the assessed valuation of property in the county would be reduced by what, Nancy, 59
Well,
or 60?
It's 69, but that's not even counting New York State Horizon, so it's well over 70 million.
Some of these are very large tax certs. The towns have asked in the past, and Ira's gone out and I've gone out on a one-on-one basis to towns, could the county get involved? The irony of the whole system is, and I'm using rough numbers, the town's interest in a tax cert is roughly, what, 20%, 22%? Ours is another 20 or 22%, the balance is really the school district. What we would ultimately like to see is that when there is a significant tax cert, which we believe can properly be defended, that all three jurisdictions participate, because they all have an interest in defending the tax cert. It doesn't change anything immediately. What does happen if tax certs that are granted that shouldn't have been granted, you're ultimately artificially and inappropriately reducing the the assessed valuation in the county, which means that you, for the communities involved, the county and the school districts, to raise what they need, tax rates have to go up. That's the long-term result of having tax certs granted that should not have been granted in the first place.
And the long-term solution, which is a difficult pill for people to accept, is really reval.
Well, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
That's true.
Well, that's number one. Number two, the towns and the schools really don't have that much interest in it if, because we make them whole.
That's
So
true.
they,
That's
you know,
true.
they really don't wanna invest in that, they'd rather we do it.
Good point, Chief.
Yeah.
So
So
what
the-
we're suggesting is that we get involved on a more affirmative, regular, established basis. But if you just look at the sheet Nancy has and say, well, oh, that's when they're asking for a $3 million reduction, that's when we should get involved in, you really can't make that decision until you do at least a preliminary appraisal to say, is there merit to that tax cert, or is there not merit to
Well,
that?
what kind of money are we talking for these appraisals?
No, the bottom line is how much money do you
We
need? 'Cause you
need,
said
yeah.
you need money in.
We
Are
need
the
an
towns
estimate.
That's what I
buying
s-
in?
That's pretty
Have
much
to
what I
buy
just
in,
asked.
yes, definitely, they want our
Yes.
participation.
That's exactly.
Because some of the towns now, as Ira said, handle a tax cert without even ever having an appraisal. They rely solely on their own assessor.
Again, a number.
Ira?
Well, at
We
least
can't,
something to
we can't
ballpark.
authorize a blank check, so we'll need.
No, I'm just curious
we'll
how
need-
much
We
we're
need a
talking about.
ballpark.
Well, let's-
You
If
think
not
we should
now, we can
start
bring it up in
10
executive.
to 15?
I would've said less
Okay.
Okay.
for preliminary, but we haven't spoken to any of these, you know, for
Come back
big,
to
for
us
big
in
commercial.
executive if it's okay
Yeah,
with Scott.
we'll get back to
with
you
an
after we
es-
speak to them. I'm thinking you can do this for the 3 or 4 preliminary appraisals for 10,000 or less. But until you do that, you don't have any real hard information upon which to make an assessment. Then you're gonna start getting involved in final appraisals, legal expenses, then it begins getting expensive. But we don't wanna even intrude into one of these until we have a feel for whether we should or shouldn't.
So, help me better understand this. A tax cert is the person or the organization says, I need to get this off the tax rolls.
No, it's not tax
Okay.
exemption. You can go and say, the assessed value on my house is too much. I want it reduced. That's a tax cert.
Okay.
You go in and you say, I want my assessment on my house reduced from $100,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
And there are a lot of those small ones. But then you get some properties that are very large, and they want it reduced by $3 or $4 million, whether it's Kutcher's or what are some of the other big,
Yeah,
Coles,
Moira Energy over the years.
Eagle Creek, theirs.
Walmart.
Walmart.
Those are
Go
very,
to Walmart.
those are specialized properties where you need specialty appraisers to help you decide whether that tax cert is real or not.
But Sam, there are a couple that do ask for a 0, so there's not a lot of them, but there are a couple.
There are.
Yeah, but that's not a tax.
Well, following from Kitty's question,
That's not a cert, that's.
So, if you were doing this, and you're talking, since we don't have a assessed value across the county,
Oh, yeah, these assessments are different in every town.
right, so the mechanics of it, if Walmart, instead of being in Monticello, was in,
Never sink.
Oh, never think they would have a
Well,
very low
well,
assessed value.
fair market value is fair market value regardless of where you are. You back into the assessed value by applying the equalization rate.
but the
Just the
equalization
reverse.
rate doesn't exist
But what the
here.
appraiser is gonna do is they're gonna value the property based upon fair market value. They're not gonna base it upon the assessed value. They're gonna equalize the assessed value, so you get the assessor's opinion of fair market value. They're gonna appraise it that way. And then, like I said, you apply the equalization rate and you get the assessed value. So equalization rates are different amongst the different towns. So each town has their own equalization rate, so that's how the assessed value would differ between the different towns.
Yeah, countywide assessment, that wouldn't happen.
Okay.
Cora?
so, my understanding when we first started this conversation 2 years ago, there was, an option, if that's the right way of putting it, on going toward what Kitty was saying before, whether some properties are legitimately tax exempt or not.
No, there's nothing to do with
No.
tax
I
exemption.
understand that,
This discussion is something totally different.
I get that, but I wanna know what the status of that conversation was, because we've been having that conversation kind of in fits and starts for the last couple of years.
She's
Status
broadening the
of-
topic.
You mean, you know, you're not talking about county road assessment?
No, I'm talking about the
Because
fact
they're
that originally Kitty thought this was having to do with the conversation we had regarding tax exempt properties, that, you know, the towns make decisions as to whether
Towns
things
make
are
the
on
decision.
the, yeah, and
We do not.
I know, and that's been sort of questioned since I've started as a
Right. Well,
legislator.
This will cover that.
Okay,
What we're
so
talking
can
about
you-
is tax certs and exempts.
Okay, so how does it cover the exempt part?
The same way, we'll look at the exempt litigation that's filed every fall,
Right.
and we'll meet with the town, and then we'll come here and say, we think we ought to be involved in this case because it's significant.
Okay, so it's only for those that are under litigation, because there are cases that I know of specifically in Liberty where the fact that there was no litigation, the town just made them tax exempt.
Well,
And-
the assessor has that authority to make a property tax exempt.
And there's nothing the
There's
county
nothing
can
we
do
can
or
do.
say.
No, we agree or
No.
not. We do not have an ability.
Only if it's under litigation.
One of the things we can do, Cora, is there's a provision in real property tax law that permits us, if the towns agree, to help them with the process of identifying exempt, what property should be exempt. But so far, no town has asked us for, or agreed to have us help them with that.
If a town exempts a piece of property, we wind up not being involved at all. If they don't exempt a piece of property and then the homeowner sues to have it made exempt, that's where we can get involved. So if towns decide to exempt property that shouldn't be in the first place, we have no voice at that table.
Understood.
And helping in the tax cert is not new. We had a very expensive one a number of years ago when we participated in the tax cert on Mirren.
Morrisburg.
Now, done in the context of a federal proceeding, but
That was the energy company,
Yeah.
and they were,
Yeah.
they owned all the dams,
There was a number of townships.
Yeah.
and we all got together, we hired a specialty appraiser from Maine, if I recall correctly, I believe.
I think so.
So we've done that in the past. But just to get involved where we don't know whether the case makes sense or not, it's not a prudent way of going.
Understood.
So,
Cindy,
no,
you had a
just so that I'm
question?
clear, 'cause,
Cindy?
yeah,
Yeah.
Alan. You're talking county share, possibly 10,000 or less for appraisers to assist the townships and.
No,
To
be
assist,
very clear.
to assist the cases.
Be very clear, what we're
Make a
talking
decision.
about is a very preliminary appraisal. I'm not gonna say it's a windshield appraisal, but a very preliminary appraisal, so that we can make an educated recommendation to you as to whether we should get involved in that tax survey.
Okay.
There will be
That-
additional, if you say yes, go ahead. Then there's gonna be expense for a full appraisal,
Which will be shared.
which will, be shared with the town
So-
or the school district. And there'll be expense for outside counsel.
So basically, the appraiser will
Again.
prioritize the case for.
The appraiser's gonna say, look, they're
We all
asking
got
for a
it.
$3 million reduction. Based on what I've seen preliminarily, it either is warranted or it's so unwarranted that you have a reasonably good shot at it. That's what we're looking for to start with.
Okay, I-
So out of the assessed
I think-
evaluation of $70 million, we would have to be successful in that, in the.
We're only
case.
talking about a few cases to start with the
Right.
first year, because there's an expense to all of this.
And whether you're successful.
Again, a
Yeah, I'm gonna-
ballpark
This is to
figure.
give
I'm
us a
gonna-
level of
Right.
comfort for each one.
I would ask
Do we
it-
even wanna start with this?
Exactly.
And you have to have buy-in from everybody to proceed forward with,
Correct.
to completion, right?
Right, so I think there's consensus to do that. Get back to us in executive
will.
with the ballpark.
We will.
I'd like to provide an opportunity for public comment, and I'd also like to provide my colleagues with a half hour for lunch.
That's important.
So public comment?
We're down to 28 minutes, but
Yeah.
okay.
Public comment? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, you got 30 minutes.
Almost.
Almost.